The wind howls across mist-shrouded hills, carrying whispers of a forgotten world. Warriors clad in iron and paint once roamed these lands, leaving behind scars on the earth and in the minds of those who dared to face them. They were fierce, fearless, and enigmatic. Some vanished without a trace, yet their legends have endured for centuries. What secrets did these early European tribes guard? And what truths about their lives have been buried beneath layers of history and myth? Tonight we journey into the shadowy world of the Celtic tribes, where survival was an art and every choice could mean life or a violent death. Long before kingdoms rose and fell, before Rome's legions marched across the continent, Europe was ruled by a people whose name still stirs awe: the Celts. From the misty valleys of Ireland to the dense forests of Gaul, these tribes were more than warriors. They were farmers, artisans, seers, and keepers of rituals that modern historians struggle to fully understand. Their world was brutal and beautiful, marked by endless cycles of war and celebration, sacrifice and survival. In this documentary, we peel back the layers of time to reveal the daily lives, the culture, and the ferocious spirit of Europe's early warriors. But beware, what you are about to witness challenges everything you thought you knew about the people who shaped the earliest chapters of Europe. Before we step further into the world of the Celts, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss the secrets we uncover in this journey through time. In the heart of ancient Europe, the Celtic tribes were defined by one unyielding force: the warrior. But to call them mere fighters would be a grave understatement. Theirs was a world where the clash of steel and the thunder of hooves were as natural as the wind sweeping across misty hills. From the moment a boy was born into a tribe, he was marked for destiny, a destiny entwined with battle, honor, and the relentless pursuit of courage. The training of a Celtic warrior began early. By adolescence, boys were already learning to handle spears, swords, and shields. But this was not just physical education. It was a lesson in instinct, in timing, in reading the chaos of combat. They learned how to move like the wind, how to anticipate the enemy's strike, how to fight not just with strength but with cunning and strategy. Failure in training was not merely embarrassing. It could mean death when the tribe's survival was at stake. Their appearance in battle was as striking as their skill. Warriors adorned themselves with intricate tattoos, swirling patterns that covered arms, chests, and faces. Some wore bright blue woad paint, a substance believed to intimidate enemies and invoke the protection of their gods. Every mark, every stripe, every design told a story, of family, of tribe, of personal achievements. It was both armor and declaration, a visual roar that announced, "I am here. I am fearless. I am ready to fight." But weapons and decoration only tell part of the story. The Celts were masters of innovation in war. Archaeological evidence shows chariots built for speed and agility, capable of breaking enemy lines and striking terror into the hearts of opposing warriors. Their fortifications were sophisticated, often constructed atop hilltops with multiple layers of defense, proving that strategy was as important as strength. They understood terrain, deception, and timing, skills that allowed smaller tribes to hold off much larger forces. In every clash, the Celts displayed a combination of raw power and cunning that confounded their enemies, including the mighty Romans. And yet, warfare was not merely a practical matter. For the Celts, it was a spiritual journey. Death in battle was not feared, it was revered. Warriors believed that dying with honor granted passage to the other world, a realm where heroes feasted forever in the halls of their gods. This belief infused each strike with intensity and each charge with purpose. They fought not only to protect their homes and families, but to secure a place in legend, The druids, spiritual leaders and seers of the tribe, often accompanied warriors into battle. Cloaked in mystery, they invoked blessings, performed rituals, and interpreted omens. Their presence reminded the fighters that victory was not determined by strength alone, but by the favor of unseen forces. Warriors believed that every swing of a sword, every arrow loosed, was guided by forces beyond the mortal realm. Courage, strategy, and fate intertwined, creating a tension that electrified every skirmish. Yet the battlefield was only one arena in which the warrior's life was tested. Even in times of peace, combat skill dictated status, influence, and respect within the tribe. Ritualized duels and competitions were commonplace, serving as both entertainment and proof of strength. Young men were expected to demonstrate agility, endurance, and cleverness in challenges that mirrored the unpredictability of real combat. A boy who failed to prove himself risked being marginalized, stripped of social standing, and denied the privileges reserved for those capable of defending the tribe. The Celtic approach to war extended beyond individual prowess. Tribal cohesion was paramount. Warriors were expected to fight as one, coordinating strikes, flanking maneuvers, and ambushes with precision. Their ability to act collectively distinguished them from other contemporary societies, allowing tribes to achieve victories against far larger or better-equipped foes. The Celts understood that in battle, unity and trust were as vital as skill and bravery, and yet there was an art to fear itself. Celtic warriors knew the psychological impact of their appearance and tactics. Painted faces, wild hair, and thunderous battle cries were designed to unnerve enemies long before swords clashed. The blue-painted warriors of Gaul, charging across open fields, must have appeared more spirit than flesh, a terrifying specter of the forest and the mist. Fear was a weapon, subtle yet devastating, wielded as skillfully as the finest blade. Ironically, the same warriors who struck terror in their enemies also embodied a code of honor. Plunder was conducted with method, vengeance was exacted with purpose, and bravery was expected in both combat and life. Their lives were a delicate balance between the chaotic violence of battle and the structured order of the tribe. To survive, and to live with honor, was a daily challenge, one that demanded constant vigilance, unwavering courage, and relentless discipline. By examining the remains of weapons, armor, and fortifications, we can glimpse the life of these warriors. Every artifact tells a story of conflict, resilience, and ingenuity. Yet, perhaps the most haunting truth is that the Celts' greatest battles were not only fought on the field, they were fought within themselves, against fear, against fate, and against the inexorable passage of time. Theirs was a world where life could end with a single swing of a sword, and where death could elevate a man to legend. In understanding Celtic warriors, we begin to understand the heartbeat of their society. Their courage, their artistry, their cunning, and their rituals were inseparable from the very identity of the tribe. They were more than warriors. They were the living embodiment of a culture forged in fire and shadow, a culture whose echoes continue to stir the imagination centuries later. And as we step further into their world, we realize that the stories of battle, bravery, and blood are only the beginning of a civilization that thrived in the delicate balance between life, death, and legend. While the Celtic warrior is often the image that lingers in the mind, the world behind the battlefield was equally vivid, complex, and mysterious. These early Europeans did not live solely for war. They cultivated land, crafted intricate works of art, raised families, and maintained rituals that bound their tribes together in ways both practical and mystical. Understanding the daily life of the Celts is like peering through a veil of fog into a world both familiar and utterly alien, a society where survival, culture, and spirituality intertwined. Celtic villages were carefully chosen for both defense and sustenance. Hilltops provided visibility over approaching threats, while river valleys offered fertile soil for crops. Houses were typically round, with thatched roofs and wooden walls. Inside, a central hearth burned day and night, its smoke curling upward through a simple opening, carrying the scent of meat, herbs, and the earth itself. Around the fire, families gathered not just for warmth, but for the sharing of stories, the teaching of skills, and the reinforcement of the social bonds that held the tribe together. The walls of these homes, though simple, were alive with meaning. Woven textiles, carved wood, and occasionally symbols etched into the walls that linked the household to ancestral spirits. Agriculture was the lifeblood of the tribe. Celts planted grain such as barley and wheat, maintained vegetable gardens, and raised livestock, including pigs, cattle, and sheep. But farming was never just about survival. It was intertwined with ritual and belief. The cycles of planting and harvest were marked with festivals, songs, and ceremonies designed to honor the spirits of the land. Every seed sown was an act of faith. Every harvest a celebration of life's delicate balance. These rituals reminded the tribe that human existence was inseparable from the natural world, and that respect for the earth was as crucial as courage on the battlefield. Artistry flourished alongside daily labor. The Celts were unparalleled craftsmen, producing jewelry, weapons, pottery, and ceremonial objects of astonishing intricacy. Gold torques adorned necks in spirals and twists. Bracelets were engraved with symbolic motifs, and pottery was decorated with swirling patterns echoing the natural world. Each creation was more than functional. It was imbued with identity, status, and sometimes even spiritual significance. Art was communication, storytelling, and legacy, bridging the visible world and the unseen, where the spirits of ancestors and gods were believed to dwell. Women played central roles in this complex society. They managed households, oversaw agricultural production, and raised the next generation of warriors, farmers, and artisans. Many were skilled in crafts, weaving intricate fabrics and fashioning tools or jewelry. In some instances, women took up arms alongside men, defending their homes and families when the threat came too close to ignore. Beyond these practical duties, women also participated in spiritual life, occasionally serving as priestesses or druids, guiding rituals, and maintaining the sacred knowledge that held the tribe's cultural fabric together. Religion and spirituality permeated daily life. Druids were the keepers of knowledge, mediators between humans and the gods, and interpreters of omens and natural phenomena. Their rituals could range from simple blessings to elaborate ceremonies that included offerings of food, animals, or even humans in extreme circumstances. Seasonal festivals marked solstices, equinoxes, and harvests, turning the rhythms of the earth into a calendar of communal celebration and reflection. Music, poetry, and dance accompanied these events, lifting the tribe into experiences that were both ecstatic and transcendent. These rituals reinforced the idea that life was sacred, interconnected, and fleeting, a delicate thread in the vast tapestry of the world. Trade and travel were vital to Celtic society. Rivers served as natural highways, connecting villages and tribes across vast distances. Merchants and travelers brought not just goods, but ideas, techniques, and cultural influences that enriched Celtic life. Artifacts found in excavations, from Mediterranean pottery to exotic metals, reveal a network of exchange that stretched far beyond local borders. Yet, despite these connections, the Celts fiercely maintained their own identity. Each tribe had unique customs, dialects, and artistic styles, creating a mosaic of cultures that was at once interconnected and fiercely independent. Even leisure and recreation were woven with significance. Athletic contests, storytelling competitions, and communal games were not mere entertainment. They were training grounds for agility, strategy, and social cohesion. Young men and women demonstrated skill, intelligence, and courage in ways that reflected both individual talent and collective pride. Music and storytelling were central, preserving history and legends orally, ensuring that knowledge of heroes, battles, and sacred events survived even without written records. Perhaps the most striking aspect of Celtic life beyond the battlefield is the way it combined pragmatism with spirituality. Every act, planting, crafting, celebrating, was both practical and symbolic. The tribe existed in a delicate balance between the tangible and intangible, between survival in the harsh realities of the world and devotion to unseen forces that governed fate, health, and fortune. Even the simplest actions carried weight. A well-tended field, a beautifully wrought spear, or a perfectly timed festival could be seen as offerings to gods and ancestors, ensuring protection and prosperity for the tribe. In this duality between survival and spirituality, war and domestic life, the visible and the unseen, the Celts found strength. Their society thrived not merely because of warriors and weapons, but because of a shared understanding of what it meant to live, to honor, and to endure. It was a life of extraordinary complexity, sometimes violent, sometimes tender, always deeply intertwined with the natural world and the spiritual forces that seemed to pulse through every forest, river, and hill. The daily life of the Celts reminds us that a civilization is never defined solely by its warriors. Their homes, rituals, crafts, and relationships were as essential to their identity as the battlefield. To understand them fully, we must step into the roundhouses, listen to the songs, and feel the rhythms of a society that lived in harmony with danger, beauty, and mystery. Only then can we begin to comprehend the intricate, fascinating world that lay beyond the clash of swords, a world of family, faith, and the quiet courage that sustained a people who would leave a legacy echoing through millennia. The story of the Celts does not end with their rise. It fades, like mist at dawn, into mystery. For centuries, these tribes ruled vast lands stretching from the British Isles to the plains of Central Europe. They built fortresses, forged alliances, and defied empires. Yet today, their world exists only in fragments, broken artifacts, faint echoes in folklore, and names carved faintly into the stones of ancient lands. Their disappearance is one of history's most haunting enigmas. Unlike the Greeks or Romans, the Celts left no grand libraries, no detailed chronicles of their triumphs or tragedies. Their legacy was carried in songs, oral traditions, and symbols carved into wood and stone, mediums easily lost to time. What we know of them comes largely through the eyes of their enemies, especially the Romans, whose writings painted the Celts as fierce barbarians, wild, chaotic, and untamed. But between the lines of those accounts lies a deeper story, a culture far more sophisticated and spiritual than its conquerors ever admitted. The Roman campaigns against the Celts were ruthless. Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul in the 1st century BCE was not just a military operation, it was an extermination of a way of life. Villages were burned, sacred groves destroyed, and countless lives lost. The surviving tribes were absorbed into the Roman world, their languages suppressed, their traditions outlawed. The Celts, once feared as invincible warriors, were reduced to whispers in the pages of their conquerors' history books. But even as their physical presence diminished, their spirit refused to vanish. Across Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Brittany, Celtic culture endured, hidden, preserved, and reshaped. Oral poets known as bards carried the memory of the tribes in their verses, retelling the deeds of heroes long gone. Legends of figures like Cuchulainn, Boudica, and King Arthur drew their roots from these fading Celtic traditions. These tales, though mythologized over time, preserved the essence of a civilization that refused to be forgotten. The Celts' mythology was vast and profound, a tapestry of gods, nature spirits, and otherworldly realms. They believed the world was divided between the physical and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen, and that the barrier between them was thin. Forests, rivers, and mountains were sacred, each inhabited by spirits that demanded respect and reverence. Their gods were neither distant nor detached. They were woven into daily life, representing natural forces, thunder, fertility, death, rebirth. To the Celts, the divine was everywhere, and the world itself was alive. Their rituals reflected this deep connection. Archaeologists have unearthed sites where offerings, animals, weapons, even humans, were made to ensure balance between the living and the supernatural. The bogs of northern Europe, still yielding preserved bodies thousands of years later, bear silent witness to these sacred practices. Whether these sacrifices were acts of devotion, appeasement, or desperation, no one can say for certain. But they reveal a people whose understanding of life and death was inseparable from the unseen forces they believed governed both. As time moved forward, the Celts became ghosts of history. Romanization swept through Europe, erasing many of their customs. Later came Christianity, which absorbed and transformed what remained of their beliefs. Pagan festivals became Christian holidays. Gods were recast as saints or demons. The great Celtic feast of Samhain, marking the end of harvest and the beginning of winter, evolved into All Hallows' Eve, or Halloween. Even as the old gods faded, their shadows lingered, reshaped into new forms. In the remote corners of Europe, however, fragments of Celtic identity survived the centuries. In Ireland, the old language endured. In Wales, the songs of ancient bards were preserved. The intricate knot patterns that adorned Celtic art became timeless symbols, found today in jewelry, manuscripts, and monuments. Each spiral, each interlocking curve, represents the eternal cycle of life and death, creation and destruction, a philosophy that transcended the collapse of their civilization. Modern archaeology continues to peel back the layers of this lost world. Hill forts, burial mounds, and sacred lakes reveal glimpses of a complex, vibrant society. Every discovery, a rusted blade, a carved idol, a piece of jewelry buried with its owner, adds another piece to the puzzle. Yet the more we uncover, the more questions arise. Who were the druids truly? What rituals took place in the sacred groves that once covered the landscape? And what beliefs sustained a people who saw no distinction between the material and the spiritual realms? The Celts may have vanished as a unified culture, but their spirit flows like an underground river, surfacing in the most unexpected places. It lives in the myths that still inspire modern fantasy, in the music that echoes their ancient rhythms, in the languages that have survived against all odds. Even today, in places like Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, the descendants of the Celts carry fragments of that ancient soul, unbroken, defiant, enduring. Their disappearance is not a story of extinction, but transformation. The Celtic tribes did not die. They evolved, their essence absorbed into the cultures that followed. Like their gods, they shifted forms, hidden in plain sight, woven into the DNA of modern Europe. Their story is not of defeat, but of resilience. A people whose fire, though dimmed, never truly went out. And yet, one haunting question remains. What was lost when their voices fell silent? What truths did they carry that were never written down, never passed on, never found again? Somewhere beneath Europe's soil, beneath its rivers and ruins, the answers may still sleep. The Celts' world, wild, spiritual, and full of wonder, may yet have more secrets to reveal. Perhaps in some forgotten corner, the echoes of their drums still roll through the mist, carrying a warning or a promise that the past is never truly gone. It only waits, patient and silent, for those brave enough to listen.